then we obviously had the big the Batman panel with Matthew Reeves or Matt Reeves. Yes, I went all formal there for some reason. Call him Matthew. But Matt Reeves was there talking to Aisha Taylor, and yeah, he was talking about. I mean, some of it was kind of fluffy and whatever. What was interesting is that he mentioned that they've only shot like 25% of the movie, and the trailer that we got was made out of that 25%, which is interesting. There's so much more, you know, so many like parts of the movie that they've not even looked at yet. So
they could make adjustments based off of reactions now too.
They could.
They've only shot 25%.
To the point where there's a bit of narration in this from Riddler, you know, basically saying like a really ominous riddle that I'm convinced that just to give the trailer some like extra flavor, they got him to record just for the sake of the trailer.
Yeah.
Because they probably didn't have enough to like, hey, we've got enough to build a story.
It's pretty easy to just do a couple of little voiceover bits for a trailer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, if he's not got a mic at home, post him a mic and make him record something. Yeah.
I forgot Paul Dano was in this until this started going around.
Hey, I forgot Colin Farrell was in this, and even after I watched the trailer, I still forgot Colin Farrell was in it until someone pointed out and said, "That's Colin Farrell."
Yeah,
I don't believe them.
There was a story from Jeffrey Wright the other day came out where he said he passed, you know, on set going to shoot, he passed him, didn't realize it was him, and said, "Hey, have you seen Colin anywhere? We're supposed to be shooting in like 5 minutes."
Oh, Jeffrey Wright. Has there been a more? I mean, I loved Oldman as Gordon, but as soon as I saw Jeffrey Wright, I was like, this makes so much sense.
He might be the best Gordon ever.
Like, just the quiet confidence that Jeffrey Wright always has. I mean,
let's be honest. Like, I summed up all the fandom stuff, but really, what we're here for is talk about this Batman trailer because this is the big new thing. That's
in case you didn't know, he is Vengeance.
Yes, he is Vengeance. Yes. So this is our first look at Robert Pattinson. This is the first look at Matt Reeves' film. The look of it, the feel of it, super industrial, super. Obviously, it is grey. It's dark and grey. So, you know, it starts off like a serial killer movie, like Seven, where you've got.
It feels like a David Fincher movie.
Yeah, Riddler's taping some victim, and Batman's there at the crime scene. You know, with Gordon looking at things. I think the big points here, obviously the Nirvana songs gives it a lot of flavor, but the big things here is when the thug asks him who he is, and we get essentially if it's not a single shot, it feels like a single shot of him just brutalizing this guy by grabbing his fist, basically breaking his arm and punching him several times in the head.
Yeah, and so what I saw is, you know, the whole 2020 culture and how things are changed, and, you know, there's a whole people out crying about Batman. However, someone pointed out, and I wish I could give them credit, that it was like, no, this makes way more sense that Batman would take out one of these guys as an example to the rest of them, right? And it was actually, it's something that I can't recall seeing in a Batman movie. Now, I could be wrong. I could be forgetting stuff, but him just singling out one dude instead of fighting, you know, the group of them, I think that was pretty cool.
Yeah, even if half of them piss off in fear, that's a result.
Right?
Yeah,
and that to me fits in with the character of Batman, right? That he's this larger than life character, you know, instead of them all surrounding him to attack and whatnot.
Well, two questions I have then, just on Batman himself is, how do you think of this suit, and what do you think of Pattinson so far?
He looks like he should be fronting as Bruce Wayne. He looks like he should be fronting a My Chemical Romance cover band.
Hey, Joe, I appreciate it though. And I saw people making this comparison. Sorry?
I thought you were going to say the eye black, but go ahead.
Well, I am, but more so that he still has it on after he takes the mask off. Because people are pointing out, see if you go back and watch Batman Returns, there's a moment towards the end where he takes the mask off and his makeup around his eyes magically disappears. But because he's about to take it off in the shot, he's actually missing it with the mask on, and it looks really stupid. So even though, yes, he looks really weird and emo at the end of the trailer, it actually, it feels like,
it makes sense. Like, and it feels lived in. That was always one thing for, as real as the Nolan movies felt at times, it was a hyper reality to where, you know, if Bruce really was running around, Alfred would have had to do his eye makeup, right?
Well,
like, so the fact that here,
you could say the same thing about this. You know, like, I mean,
but they're showing it here, right? They didn't talk about that in the Nolan for how real it was. Like there's always the reality of that happening.
No, Matt,
Here,
I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying this is equally hyper real. It's just hyper real in a different way.
Well, sure, but I'm just saying the fact that they're pointing it out, I do like. You know, like it's a practical for as impractical as Batman can seem, right? Rich guy with a bunch of toys. The fact that he's wearing, you know, almost football eye black to blend in with his mask is super cool. And
I feel like I like the suit more in the context of the movie than I'd ever did in the stills or that little teaser, like, you know, clip they put out.
The high collar reminds me of Jean Paul of Azrael a little bit, but I'm sure they'll explain that away in the movie or through whatever.
I've seen Bruce
designed for its protection.
I've seen Bruce with a collar. Batman Noel has a collar.
Yeah, I think it's a good example to me about. It's not even because obviously I remember like maybe back when the Amazing Spider-Man was getting made and there was like leaked set photos and the suit looked like crap, and I was like, well, no, once it's under the proper lighting, it actually looks pretty good. It's just because it's a a candid shot that's taken in improper conditions.
Which always look terrible. Every single one.
Same with the Flash suit. I felt the Flash suit he looked for the TV show.
But this isn't. He looks like. This isn't just that though. This is an example of the world that the movie created. Because the first time we saw the suit for this, it wasn't a controlled environment. It wasn't a candid shot. It was a lit thing that was the way it was. I feel like this is an example of like when you see the grimy, David Fincher-esque looking world around him, and you see him walking in this kind of homemade looking, I mean, more high tech than the hockey pads, of course, but it looks kind of industrial and sort of like put together. Same with the car; it looks like it's just a car that's been souped up with an extra engine, and
it is, yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I like that too. What did you think of the snippets of Catwoman that we get in this?
She looks great.
I mean, it doesn't look that Catwoman-y, but I mean, it's a tiny little trailer with nothing really to show. So,
well, I'm going to counterpoint that a little bit. See if you pay attention to the scene that she's in. We see her sort of cracking a safe, and then Batman shows up, and there's a bit of a fight.
I meant visually. Sorry.
Right. The way she reacts, because she tries to fight him a bit, right, and it's like a proper back and forth for a couple of seconds, and basically she tries to use her speed and whatever, and it doesn't work. Batman blocks her and knocks her back. There's a great moment at the end of that little scene that you see where she starts to sort of slink back like an actual cat, like an actual Catwoman-esque, where she sort of slinks back because she realizes that she can't take him on in a fight, and she's thinking, okay, how do I deal with this now, because I can't do a one-on-one fight with him.
Yeah, if we're ever gonna get my favorite costume for Catwoman on screen, it'll probably be this version, which is cool. Which is that during the Brubaker run, you get the goggles and like the jumpsuit kind of look, where she looks like a thief, like it's multi-use. It's not the
we had that
Batman
kind
Returns.
Of the Arkham games, right?
Yeah, that was more or less the Arkham games.
Yeah, it was pretty close.
So I like that it's practical and functional. It's not just there because in comics sometimes stuff's just there because it looks cool. Do you know what
this whole trailer makes me feel? And I've been saying this for a long time with the movies, that eventually we're going to get so many movies and so many reboots and trilogies by one director, then another trilogy by another directors, that eventually we're going to look at the movies like we do with the comics, where a director comes in, they have their run, they have their trilogy or whatever, and this feels like it's going to be Matt Reeves' run. And I think, especially this one, it feels like it's a Black Label series. It feels like instead of trying to adapt the main continuity DC Batman, he's saying, no, this is my Black Label movie.
That's actually one of my biggest problems, and not that it's a different take, because I think that's what you're getting at with Black Label there.
Yeah,
it's not a direct adaptation sort of thing. It's kind of a different take on it. That's fine.
In the same way that
Batman.
In the same way, like Criminal Sanity kind of turned it into a serial killer thing for Joker and Harley, where there's different versions of those characters.
Yeah. That element of it isn't my complaint here. What I'm kind of getting at is there's a lot of rumors that it's going to be R-rated, and I'm like, I don't really need an R-rated Batman at all. I'm quite happy.
I think it'll boil down to what they do with the Riddler, because if you really want it to be Fincher-esque, it's got to be ghastly. There's got to be some true crimey type stuff. I don't necessarily think that we're gonna have Batman yelling profanity, or
maybe
or a bat sex scene.
I don't think I need any Batman movie that's more than a PG-13. Honestly, I don't think it needs to.
I think they'll get it down. It's Warner Brothers. They're not gonna want to isolate, you know, my
Well, you say that,
dead
Matt,
set
but
hardcore.
in a post Logan Deadpool Joker world,
As much as we don't like Joker in terms of
yeah,
how
money,
much bank it made.
yeah.
True,
I mean, don't get me wrong.
but
This has a much bigger budget than Joker, though. Let's make that clear.
yeah,
Right.
but
This
also
would not be as profitable, even at the same amount of net income.
No, and that's why I think so.
Gross.
If they want PG-13, because I have a hardcore Batman dead set friend, like that's his entire, frame of things, and he's gonna want to take his kid to see this. And if it's rated R, that's gonna, kind of want to quench that. And I feel like you can do that with Daredevil in Logan. I don't know. I feel like some of the Batman, the more serious you take it, the less well it turns out. I don't know. So again, I think it really depends on how much they want to show with Riddler or Penguin and how brutal you want to make Gotham around it.
There is a part there you mentioned your friend wanted to take his kid to it. I think kids should be able to go see pretty much any Batman movie. It's Batman.
I agree, and that's why I think it's going to depend on how far they want to push that. But I don't. So that's why I don't see. Warner Brothers wanting to let them do the R. You know what I mean?
I don't think we need R-rated Batman by any means. I never need one. I'm not necessarily like upset at the idea of them trying it though. Like I don't necessarily mind, especially like if it's because Batman's slitting throats and whatnot, then yeah, I've got a problem. Yeah. But if it's because Riddler is a complete bastard of a serial killer, because because Dark Knight was borderline, right? Dark Knight, like they went as far as they could, and I'm not gonna lie. Like those things that they had to try, a couple of scenes you could tell they had to pull back a little bit. I would have kind of liked to see them, maybe on the Blu-ray, just the director's cut. It just doesn't like add tons of stuff. Just those couple of moments they had to pull back on with Joker. Just put it back in. I'd have loved to have seen that.
Features Joker killing a dude with a pencil on a table. Like
I'm okay with a separate cut released later. That's the unedited cut, so to speak. But I think anything you're releasing in theaters, assuming theaters are still alive in a year's time, I think it has to or should, for me, be no. You can take your kid to it. It's Batman. Any new Batman movie, your kid should be able to go to see it. That's how you get new fans.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about Pete seeing Batman Begins, right? And that's what got him into comics.
Yeah.
How old were you, Pete?
I was 16. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's not.
Okay, you're a bit later there, but
yeah.
The point is, I'm sure, especially if you go back to the Burton stuff is a good period in terms of this as an example.
Although I remember Return scaring the shit out of me when I was a kid.
No,
you know what I mean?
Kids movies can still scare kids, and when I say kids movies, I mean movies that kids can see can still scare kids, and that's okay. But
I'm just saying,
can still be accessible.
Penguin biting a dude in the nose and eating raw fish. Yeah, like as a kid, I watched through my eyes, So,
although notably, that movie was a 15 in the UK when it came out.
Was it?
It was, yeah. Although that was weird over here on that one in particular.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's been downgraded now, though.
It probably has, but at the time it was a 15. There was a couple of other weird examples of that where movies got higher ratings. Now, another big thing we have to talk about with this, just to sort the thoughts on the trailer itself, I like the trailer a lot. I think it looks like a good movie. It's a different take on Nolan's, and I love Nolan's trilogy. It's going to take a lot to unseat that as my favorite cinematic version of the Batman kind of mythos, but there's definitely things about this that I like potentially more than Nolan's, details wise, right? There's details that I might like I might like the combat, for example, is the one that sticks out in that one little tease we get of the combat. I'm like, oh hey, that looks really good combat wise.
Yeah,
I can see myself liking Pattinson more than Bale.
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's very little to see yet, but I can see the potential.
That's another thing that I liked seeing come out of last weekend is the people being like, all right, guys, we get it. He was in Twilight. He's done a hell of a lot more since then. So just because you don't like that,
yeah, he dodged Willem Dafoe's jizz in the lighthouse.
I think that might be the only thing I've seen him in since Twilight, but I know he's done other.
Well, see, I still need to see Good Time because I really enjoyed Uncut Gems.
I've heard good things about that.
I don't want to ever watch Uncut Gems again.
Netflix movie coming up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's obviously
Oh, he's
also in,
also in Tenet.
he's also in Tenet, yeah.
Yeah, which I haven't seen yet because
I think
anytime soon.
I think between Tenet and the Batman, he's kind of. I mean, obviously for the indie crowd, he's already started to shed that Twilight history. But I think for the mainstream, yeah.
Mainstream. Yeah.
He'll always be Cedric Diggory to me, though. So.
Oh, piss off.
Full time.
I assume that was a Harry Potter reference. I'm not entirely 100%,
It was.
but
It was. Yeah.
I just assumed it was.
And also, I just like
just throwing that out there.
Yeah, it's not that good, but you know, he was good in it.
But I like how it feels like its own thing, and I know some people are like, "Oh, we do have to do Dark and Gritty Batman." Here's the thing: Dark and Gritty works really well for Batman. As long as, and Matt Reeves is a filmmaker that I trust to have something to say, because Matt Reeves made Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which is one of the best movies of the last 10 years. So I trust him.
Dark, for as dark as that movie gets, there's still a sense of hope, and you need that sense of hope in Batman because that's why he's doing this, right? The whole reason he dresses up as a bat is no one ends up like him.
The ending.
I think Reeves can handle that tone.
The ending shot of this with like just his face after the beatdown scene makes me feel like, I don't want to get too specific with my guess here because I don't know exactly what they're doing, but it does feel like the whole point of this movie, the character arc for him, is going to be questioning just how far he's willing to go. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the question of will he kill someone might come up in this movie, and like how Reeves is going to address that and like do a story with that. I can see that being a thing. But so the other thing I wanted to mention though that you mentioned before the trailer played is two key details. One is that this takes place during Batman Year 2, meaning that the origins happened. You can just sort of roughly assume what it was based on maybe some context in the movie, but also just generally what you think of as it won't fit after Batman Begins, but you can kind of take the loose beats of it and just kind of.
I know they did describe it as a Year 2 story.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Yeah, but they did officially say that.
Yeah, I know that's what he said. He said it on the panel.
Sorry, I didn't hear you say they said that. Sorry.
Yeah, Mario said that. And then more interestingly though is that the one season TV show they're doing on HBO Max is going to be set during Year 1, and it will focus on a corrupt police officer who I think he mentioned some sort of redemptive story over the course of it, sort of against the backdrop. So I assume that if we watch that, we're going to hear like news reports about the Batman appearing, and there's like a mysterious figure beating up criminals and stuff. I don't know. And
I love that because that gives me a Gotham Central vibe.
It does.
It might not be a direct Gotham Central. It's Batman was never the star of that book, and he was always on the outside. So when you did see him, it was a big deal. But yeah. So if that's the track they're going to take on that, it makes me want to check out the show more.
I think that's a case where being an original character will work out for the. I mean, I'm sure we'll probably get some cops we recognize around in the show. We'll probably have Montoya somewhere or whatever, but
a Bullock.
Yeah.
Almost certainly.
So,
yeah.
You want those characters. You don't have to have Gordon.
I mean,
per se.
I can see Jeffrey Wright on a TV show, no problem.
You could guest star.
But he can guest star. It's not his show, is what I'm meaning. No,
I mean, hell, you could do this story with Bullock, but I suspect they're probably going to do like an original character who's going to.
Yeah. I would love to see Bullock as that guy that is still towing the line, and that's who this guy's kind of almost like Bullock's the tragic figure, kind of like don't end up like this guy. And then that's what's so great about Bullock is when he does make the turn, and you want to root for him to be the good guy. I think that works. Also, we deserve a good Renee Montoya. Nothing against Bird, but that's not the Renee that I know that becomes the question.
Also, Gotham had a really weak version as well that was just kind of there.
Did she? Did they?
Yeah, she was like a minor character who I don't even know what happened to her because I stopped watching it before.
That sucks because Renee's such a great character that you almost would want a Renee Montoya show.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, or at least an arc on the show.
Yeah. Why can't we get a Renee Montoya show? That is the question. Anyway,
I've just got two more things to say on this. One, Pete, you talked about what the arc would be. They did openly talk about this being based on Batman Ego by Darwin Cook, which is very much Which I don't know if you've read that or not.
No.
But the point of that story is Batman is essentially the villain. There is very much Bruce and Batman, and it's about Batman's brutality and if he goes too far and if he's a symbol of hope or fear or both.
Yeah, so I imagine by the end of the story, I've not read this book, but ultimately he's going to come down the side of being the Batman that is going to go forward and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much. That's kind of what that story is. And
That's cool.
It's an interesting choice for them to base it on.
I think
that's very Darwin, who also had the rights to Parker. Right?
Yeah, it's I like that it's a lesser known story, right? It's not one you hear about as much, and I think it's nice to have a sort of character defining movie. So it's not about, okay, the origin, like we know why he's in a bat suit, we know why he has these things and why he's doing what he's doing, but this is kind of the character defining moment where he kind of solidifies what his moral compass is, and like and it's kind of one of the things that I love about Dark Knight Rises is the idea of challenging the because Batman, like he believes in his own shit too much and has to ultimately kind of humble himself again. And I'm sort of getting senses of like, no, this idea of the brutality in him finding himself, you know.
Well, and maybe that's what he learns too, is like maybe crippling thugs isn't the best look. You know, maybe you catch more flies with honey, and
maybe that's intentionally the point. Is that it's going too far.
Right, and the further we get away from the Frank Miller version that uses Robin as a decoy to be shot at, the better we're off as a society.
Here's a question: do you think? Oh, I mean, assuming this is successful, and it probably will be. Do you think this is the one that finally does a Robin or a Batgirl in a second and third movie?
I do. If even maybe you build up to Robin.
I think Warner aren't necessarily afraid of doing that anymore. I think they're more open to it. I'm not sure if Reeves wants to tell that story.
That's the problem. I feel like a lot of directors just don't want to do it, which is why we seem to just never get it. So I hope they do, because I really want the legacy.
I do feel like if they do it, it has to be an older, like him putting a kid constantly in danger. Not
it could be a teenager, It could be.
Yeah, so it's got to be
15,
someone older
16.
that's making that decision. That they have agency in it, and I don't know. I could see him doing it as I need a partner.
The reason why
I'm just going to throw this out there. The only Robin that fits the description for that story, that can come in later and be like, hey, we need help here, is Tim Drake. I know Pete's like, no, you can't skip over Dick.
No, you can't.
But I think by the time you do Dick's origin, if you do that, his parents die when he's 16, you can't have him turn to Bruce and and do that path. I don't think it functions as well. Whereas
enough of the Tim propaganda. The reason why I asked this question is because every time we're talking about Batman finding himself, one of the things that I love when they bring up about Robin as a concept is the idea that Bruce takes him in because he doesn't want him to become like him, and he doesn't want this kid to repeat the same dark path that he did. So even if Batman's in a better place, the idea that he recognizes this kid might go where he went,
and that fits in with the Darwin Cook story with Ego, from what you guys are saying, because in New Frontier, that's why Robin gets brought in, right? And it's also to soften Batman and to remind him of,
especially Tim's origin is he sees that in Bruce, and it's like, hey, you go too far.
Connor, shut up! Right. But that's what I'm saying. Based on what this movie potentially is doing, the idea, a follow-up to that would include the idea of the younger character would make sense.
And that's why I feel like Barbara makes a little bit more sense. And this is, you have Gordon, right? So, and I might just be because I'm watching Harley Quinn season 2, and that's something that occurs through that season, is you get Barbara showing up, and
do you know what? It's all talking about legacy. Like, even though I have a lot of concerns about various things about Gotham Knights the game, I do love that we're at a point now where we can have a major piece of media that focuses on the legacy characters. All three of those good ones, and then the other one too, and we can give them the spotlight.
I'm here for Bane Jason. I'm sorry. Like I can't.
It did occur to me though, if that game is successful and there's either DLC or a sequel, then you get to bring in Stephanie and Kate and Damien and some of these other ones. There's a whole other, there's a second tier of Bat family members we can bring in for game number 2.
Yeah.
So cool.
Oh man, you do a Batman the Outsiders too.
Oh, you could, yeah.
That type of thing.
Bring Katana.
You bring Katana.
Yeah.
There you go.
There's options. But yeah, so. Yeah, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else to talk about. We talked about Catwoman, we talked about Riddler, and his serial killer ways. He doesn't really have much of a Riddler suit. I imagine he might get something by the end of the movie, but not not the Jim Carrey stuff, because obviously.
He carves a question mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, or he carves a question mark into his face because he's insane. I'm okay with that too.
Actually,
although that might give it our rating, so maybe not. I don't know.
Actually, Joe, I don't know if there's no indication in the movie that it's there. I wonder if like the movie will lead to the creation of the bat signal. I wonder if that'll be like kind of like solidifying the symbol and what it means to the city at the end as the idea of the signal. I don't know, maybe.
Has there ever been a story that talks about how Gotham feels about Batman? Like, do they look at him as a menace that's making things worse? Do they look at him as hope? Because we've got that with Superman numerous times. Like, what Superman means to Metropolis.
It's sprinkled.
I don't know about wider Gotham, but Gotham Central kind of covers a lot of those beats.
Is that?
Yeah, but I'm talking about Gotham itself. Like, you're living off a crime alley, and you're just like, well, no, Batman's agitating Two-Face, and it's making it tough for my family to make it work. I think
it's sprinkled in, like, all over the place. I don't know if there's a specific story that directly makes that the focus of the whole thing, though. Off the top of my head. I mean, maybe there is.
Yeah, if there is, let me know, because that's a story I'd definitely be interested in.
Yeah.
Checking out.
Yes. So just to wrap up the fandom stuff here, Joe, I'll say about it is that a couple of years ago, I was like in a really bad place with DC movies, and I came out of this event. Yes, the Snyder Cut's happening, but Wonder Woman 84, they'll probably be solid at the first one, and both the Suicide Squad and the Batman both look great. Like, I'm actually excited actively about both of those. So.
And I think, just as another note on fandom as a whole, I think they handled it really well.
It was well put together. Yeah.
In terms of the digital experience, I think it's the best I've seen anyone.
Yeah, and they ironed the kinks out as it went, from what I hear. Yeah. And that it was a hit. They got the attention and movement that they were looking for.
Yeah, because it's the kind of thing we miss from like not having E3, right? As gamers, is that we like that barrage of news where we get all this stuff really quickly over a couple of days. And I think fandom did a really specific thing for us because we like DC. So getting DC movies and games, and obviously not really comics yet, but that's coming in the 12th. So we'll get there.
Yeah, they're just on part 2 on the 12th. They're treating it slightly differently. So whereas this was an 8-hour schedule of panels that were repeated 3 times or whatever it was, the part 2 is a bit different. All the panels are available to access at once. They've all been filmed.
Okay.
And you just pick and choose what you want to watch.
So what you're saying is that when it starts, there's going to be a barrage of news in the first half hour as everyone gets all the bits and pieces.
I hope news sites have their staff organized. Right, you're doing this panel, you're doing that, you do that, and then all just go.
I like that too, because that means someone's working the Superman beat, someone's working the Batman beat, and that why not, right?